applied to the funding to your organization?
Well, we've basically founded our principles on because although we're independent and every country has to be sustainable, we founded the principles on the original principles which Nancy started with. So I suppose it's a little different in the United States. Canada's different, so any restrictions where we can't operate in the way that we wish to operate, so for us it's a Christian organization, so we come from a Christian standpoint. Again, we don't coerce anyone. They go on their own journey and anyone is welcome, and some people will journey with us for a short term, and they get as far as they need to go and they deal with their eating disorder or their self-harm, and then they move on. So yeah, so it's anything. In the United States, I know I've heard Nancy say they actually have an adoption agency in the Nashville home. And sometimes people will want to adopt a baby and they'll offer a large sum of funds because they really want that. But it's not about that. They won't take that. It's up to the young woman and that individual if that's what she chooses.
I was online doing some homework, and I know that there's mercycanada.ca is your URL,
Yeah.
but there's a number of mercy organizations. How do you differentiate?
Yeah, I know. We've bought our the mercycanada.ca, and we've also bought a couple of others so that the search engine brings us up to who we are. So yeah, I mean, I often will get calls and they're mistaking us from Mercy Ships, which is a sea mission. They were quite different. So yes, you're right. There are a variety of derivatives. In fact, it's interesting. I did a Google search and I found Mercy Seats Ministries, and it's a counseling out that does counseling out of a church, and that's a new one as well. So it is a common name.
Can you talk about your programs?
Yeah,
can you
sure.
Can you sort of unpack what you do and how you do it?
Yeah. So basically, I'll start with the analogy of the bottom line here. So if I were to describe to you a tree, I'm not a great gardener, but I love the results of gardening. So if you were to look at a tree and it was a floral tree or a fruit tree, and you noticed that a few of the, say, apples or flowers on them were kind of rotting and not great, the inclination would be to cut them off and the rest of the beauty that the tree is exposing continue on. But if you were to do that, very quickly other fruit would become infected and then the whole tree would be sick. So what we do is we don't so much look at what's going on if we were to draw the parallel as those apples were eating disorder, self-harm, anxiety, depression, whatever it is. We actually go down deeper because the problem is hidden and it's underground and it's the soil and it's the roots. And those roots might be abandonment, they might be shame, they might be some form of abuse or neglect, whatever it is, rejection. So we get down to not why the behavior, but why the pain. And then we work through that. And then the trunk of the tree is belief systems. What are you telling yourself? So if it's rejection, then maybe the belief system is I'm not good enough, I'm flawed. And so that's resulting in a behavior where a woman might start restricting her food, and she might have, trying to be perfect or to be some ideal. So our counseling is delivered by master's level counselors. And we use emotion-focused therapy, we use family systems, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's all integrated within a basic curriculum where God is at the heart of it, and then there's like a wheel around it. So we'll work on things like renewing your mind, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, or forgiveness, healing life hurts. So maybe something will come up around a rape, and a woman will have to journey through that. And maybe there's someone else that she'll come up with that she needs to forgive. So she'll go around back to that. She'll look at principles for lifelong success. I mean, there's a variety of different components to what we work through on helping her put some practical things in place to go deep and then, to learn about grounding. When I have anxiety, how do I manage my anxiety? What are the tools I need to learn once I understand where it's coming from? And so there's grounding techniques. There's all kinds of practical processes that she'll go through. If it's a serious eating disorder in the residential, we had a dietitian that we worked with. Now we'll refer out and we'll work with external health teams because we're not residential. So we can refer to dietitians. We can involve, and nursing, or her we'll work with her medical doctor or her psychiatrist just to make sure that she has a healthy team around her that she's accountable to make sure she's getting well.
Does it make a difference, or are you more enabled to do the work you do remotely now, or is it more? Are you more successful when you have women under your own roof?
Well, what we're finding, the beauty and the challenge of this year is not only did we transition to a whole new vision of a program January 1st of 2020, then we did all the legal background and everything of doing the outpatient, and also because we're seeing people from other provinces rather than on site, because it's over Zoom. So we had that. So we actually launched it March the 18th. Of course, the pandemic hit right around that time. And we've actually found that it's working well. The feedback, we're at 9.5, 10, 11 now months in. So we just did the annual report from the data of last year. And I mentioned we tripled capacity and we've had some really good results. But I think the area this year we're finding is, with youth, the younger ones, which we're thrilled to work with, because the sooner you break those patterns early on, the easier it is for long-term health than somebody that's been walking in those behaviors for years and years and years. But with youth, they're comfortable with digital. So it's good and challenging. It's good in that it's a safe barrier to take a first step to taste and see that it's good and it's safe, because they can easily log off. They're not on site. They can run if they want, or disengage. And so I think for me, when I look long term, once we're back to residential, if we start people in the wellness program, they can get a taste, an appetizer to see if they actually need the full containment aspect, and they'll move through the process more quickly, because sometimes, as you can imagine, it's terrifying, to fill in an application and to speak with somebody in intake, and you're divulging some of your biggest challenges and why you're coming. It's a very vulnerable place. And then to trust. I always say the women that walked through those doors, they're the most courageous, strong. They are leaders of the next generation, because so many people don't have the courage to get the help that they need. So I think it's good for that long term. And the challenge is early on, it's building relationship. I'm looking at you and I can read your body language, but it's not the same as if we were face to face. So I can get the general idea. So you can imagine a counselor, it's not like she can take a tissue and put it through the screen and gently just nurture in that way. So it takes a lot of skill and focus on both that are engaging to build relationships so that she's able to go deep.
What's changed for you since COVID-19?
What's changed for us? For me personally, I think I feel more burdened than ever and more privileged that, there's lots of great programs out there and we're one. And to know that we can be a part of bringing healing to those that are in isolation. I always say, it's okay to struggle, but it's not okay to struggle alone. And ultimately, for anyone, isolation eventually leads to death if we're not connected in community with people and walking this out together. It's a lifelong process for us all, and it's human connection, and that brings life, that grounds us, that challenges us. And so to be part of the solution is the greatest honor.
So I'm still struck with the fact that you have a wait list. How do we change that?
Well, right now, we've gone far and wide with advertising for our counseling positions, and it's it's challenging because some of our former counselors that we've had, they're where they are now, their wait lists are full. They're stopping doing their groups because they're burdened too, because a counselor has to watch her own mental health in order to be pouring out effectively with someone. And so the jobs are plentiful because we're in a mental health crisis the longer this pandemic goes on. So it's finding the right people that are available in a time when that particular need is at its greatest, I think.
Can you unpack that when you say we're in a mental health crisis? I know that women's shelters are full, that domestic abuse is way up. So can you talk to some of those issues?
Yeah, for sure. Exactly what you just said. I know our phone calls a lot of them are people that are isolated at home, and the stress of financial loss, job loss. It's increasing tensions at home. And so someone that may be living at home with an abusive partner doesn't have an outlet, and that person is home, and their pressure is increasing their anger. So for sure, exactly what you just said is on the increase. Depression is higher for the same reasons. Anxiety is higher. People don't know, when will this end? What will the future look like? Will it ever go back to normal? All those kinds of questions. More and more isolation. Suicide rates are more and more suicide is happening. Again, as I said earlier, isolation leads to death. If we're left alone in our own minds and we're having challenges over a long period of time, people feel shame. They don't want to feel like they're a burden to someone, and yet that's the road out. And we all need to step in. And we can't all be part of the solution, but we can all make connection with people and offer to hear someone and refer someone or offer to direct them somewhere where they can get the help that they need.
What haven't we talked about that we should talk about?
In terms of God, whoever that is to you or to someone that's out there, I think there's so many misperceptions on, God being angry, or he's just waiting for, this is what I hear regularly through some of the women we serve, or I'm not good enough, or I haven't performed properly, or I have to get this right in my life. And I think the biggest thing for me is for people to go on a journey to discover that they were created. So right then and there, they have great value, that they would even be chosen to be created, and so that they know they're loved, and that they're unique, and that, to me, it's like an artist. They were created perfectly and beautifully just the way they are, and life gets in the way, and challenges come, and mishaps happen because of people's poor choices, or perhaps our own, but that they're good and they're unique, and they're a masterpiece, and we need them, all of us. To me, I look at it like a puzzle. When I love to do puzzles, and it drives me crazy if there's a piece missing, because that beautiful picture is never complete. And so when I see women and their families getting taken out through suicide or whatever, and I think that beautiful picture is not complete without them taking their rightful place to make it beautiful, and we're all needed.
If people want to help, or if people want to find out more about your organization, how do we find you?
Yeah, mercycanada.ca. They can give us a call. They can go on our website. Our phone number is 604-535-1983. And I'm a chatty Kathy. I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone. I love talking about hope and transformation and healing. And we love volunteers. As things start to open up, we do have volunteers, but we love to have volunteers that are out there. When we go to events, we love to go to events and have a table set up at conferences and get into communities. We do training. That's maybe one thing we haven't talked about. We go into different communities, and that tree, we have a big image of a tree, and we kind of talk through at a high level, just an overview of the issues we see. And then we train on roles and responsibilities, when to refer. So if somebody's, working with youth in a community setting, and, they feel they're getting in over their head, like, what are roles and responsibilities? What are the legalities around suicide? We can do training And we can tailor training. Like if somebody wants to do a workshop on eating disorders or anxiety or self-harm, our staff can come in and do training too. We love to serve, and we've had a decade of results. So I'm pretty excited.